Check it out. It's the Laugh to Learn podcast. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 15. I'm losing track of these. Of the Laugh to Learn podcast, your weekly source for comedic spin on all the goings-on in the world. My name is, of course, Jacob Paveo, and I come to you from the Great White North every Tuesday evening, Eastern Standard Time, fresh for download to listen to at work on Wednesday morning. For everyone around the world, you can reach me, as always, on my social media feeds, which can be found in the description for this podcast, or you can use the contact page at www.laughtolearnpodcast.com, which is also in the description for this podcast. And as always, this podcast comes to you ad-free, and all that I ask is for you to subscribe on whatever podcasting platform or YouTube, wherever you happen to be listening to it, and to please tell your friends about me, or about the podcast, rather. You can also tell them about me, either in person or with a share over the social medias. This week will be a super fun episode because I'm going to be talking all episode long about the funniest news stories so far from this year around the world. So hopefully you'll laugh along with this one, and feel free to share this episode with your friends and family because these are all going to be true stories, and we can all laugh together at the strange people of the world, hopefully with some news stories. Hopefully most of them you haven't heard of. I've been collecting these for a few weeks now, and I figure why not do them all in one big episode, because some are actually quite funny, in my opinion. Some are just like strange circumstances that we can just joke about. So there really is little left to say in this introduction, so I guess let's jump right on in. Now, a few weeks ago, you may have seen a thing going around social media all about there's a website now that you can type in your birthday and it'll tell you a hilarious news story from your birthday that starts with the term Florida man ... So like Florida man jumps off building into 3-foot deep swimming pool or something crazy like that. So I figure where better to start this episode than with a story which started with Florida man. Now, this has nothing to do with any dates other than it actually happened very recently. It is the most recent story that I have, so let me read the headline out loud for you. Quote, Florida man allegedly played basketball nude because it would enhance his skills. End quote. That is a real headline from a local Florida newspaper. The man was found in Longwood, Florida, which was in a public park, which was aptly and seriously named Candyland Park, playing basketball by himself, butt-ass naked. When approached by police, he simply said that it was improving his play. He had then been booked by police into a correctional facility for indecent exposure of a genital organ, which means he showed his penis to people. So, just to quickly run back over this story, it was a man playing basketball in the nude. That way it would better his basketball skills in a public park, which was named Candyland Park. So there's a naked basketball player in Candyland Park, Longwood, Florida. And if that wasn't strange enough, on the same day, the exact same day, a story broke from the other side of the United States, and the headline read, quote, a South Dakota man stole sex toys from a couple's house, end quote. Now, off the bat, sounds real strange, right? Until you read into the story and actually see what's going on, because this wasn't like, someone broke into a house, stole a bunch of things, including a sex toy, or like someone broke into someone's house and stole a dildo. No, no, no. So 25-year-old Brody Fuchs, F-U-C-H-S, Fuchsias. Anyways, 25-year-old dude was charged for stealing a number of sex toys from the same couple's home over a period of 2 years. The man was caught, he was finally caught, I should say, entering the home for roughly 40 seconds because cameras were eventually set up after they realized all their kinky stuff had gone missing. And he was only in the house for 40 seconds because he knew exactly where the merchandise was stored. And he apparently would come every couple of weeks and steal one item each time. So this couple for 2 years was thinking they were crazy and just losing their sex toys around the house. Maybe thinking that like their children had them hidden in toy boxes. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. But it took them 2 full years before they set up cameras to be like, okay, like what the hell is going on? And sure enough, this dude knew how to get into the house no problem. 40 seconds, up into the kinky closet, grabbed whatever the fuck he was looking for, and left. So, like, dude, what the hell are you doing? This literally is the reason that the world needs Craigslist. Like, a guy like this needs Craigslist or something like that. Because, like, he just needs, I don't know, some strange people to get together with and do whatever weird shit he wants to do. But, like, that's what Craigslist was used for. And for those of you who don't know, Craigslist was shut down, like, a year ago now. All of their, like, weird shit online has been taken off. So then weird people like this have to, like, break into houses. Actually, it was maybe more than a year ago now. But, yeah, weird people like this have to break into houses now and steal your sex toys because they can't go on Craigslist and find couples who would be like, yeah, it's cool. Use these for whatever you're using them for. Because that's basically what Craigslist was, which is a strange business model, but it worked. But can you imagine being that couple? Like, for real? Like, you learn that some dude is like drive. So police will not say if he knew them or not, but he lived a few hours away across the state border. So he would get in his car and drive a few hours to go into their house and steal something. So he like probably knew them, but it's just like, even if he, I don't know what's worse. Like, I don't know if it's worse if he knew the couple or didn't know the couple, because either he knew these people and like their friend was coming into their house and stealing their sex toys to do who the hell knows what with them, or he just randomly picked this house miles and miles away. Like, how many houses did he have to go into to see, like, do these people have weird sex toys? Do these people have weird sex toys? Until he finally found a couple that, like, had enough that they would buy more as they noticed they went missing and whatnot. Like, it had to take him years, if he didn't know this couple, to find a house that he could consistently rob sex toys from. But either way, it is an absolutely incredible story. And it's also, like, I don't know, yeah, I really can't decide if it's worse had he known the couple or not. But you can make your own decision there. Now, for the next story, I think we should take a trip down under, and this time not in a sexual way. So this is also rather recent. On May 9th of this year, 2019, it was pointed out to the Australian government, the Australian lawmakers, that someone had misspelled the word responsibility on a $50 note, on a $50 bill. They would go on to realize that it was actually misspelled 3 times on the same note. And then they would later realize that this actually happened on 46 million printed notes. 46 million $50 banknotes had the word responsibility misspelt. Now, the image, the individual who's printed on the $50 note is the first female Prime Minister of Australia, and this is her first public address after her election. And in the word responsibility, all 3 times, the third I was removed. So it was like, instead of saying responsibility, it said, whatever, I guess, responsibility. Now, the writing is very small, and that's probably why it took so long for someone to see it at all. And it actually needs to be magnified to be seen easily, especially since the note is yellow in color. It is small black writing, but with the yellow contrast, it actually makes it strangely a little bit more difficult to see. You can find images of it online. And they, of course, will not be able to recall these. There are 46 million $50 notes, so the notes will be forever in circulation, and who knows, maybe one day they will be worth something as as they get taken out of circulation eventually. So if you find yourself with an Australian $50 note, maybe store one to the side. I don't know if I'd go as far as ordering one online. I'm certainly not doing it, but I mean, you gotta do you. You know what I'm saying? Now, on a side note, the $50 note, that was a weird sentence for me to structure, in Australia is also known as a pineapple because of its color. And there's no reason for me to point that out other than the fact that I think it's hilarious. So could you imagine me like, hey man, you got a pineapple? And like me, I'd be like, why the hell does it look like I'm carrying a pineapple? And they'd be like, no, a $50 bill. I don't know, I love hearing about funny terms for money, so the more you know. Although my favorite, and I could be biased here, but I seriously think the Canadian loonie is the best monetary term. For those that don't know, the loon is a bird, which is specifically found in Canada and a little bit of the northern U.S., and it is printed on our $1 coin. We don't have $1 bills anymore. And, yeah, we call the coin a loonie because there's a loon on it, and it doesn't mean crazy. Either way. Also, sticking with Australia, this is at the University of Canberra, and it was evacuated by firefighters after the discovery of a strong smell of gas, a very strong smell of gas, apparently. They had the building evacuated within 10 minutes. That's how serious it was. And after searching for an hour, the fire department discovered that the source of the odor was a durian fruit, which is a Chinese, specifically, it's known as to be a Chinese fruit that was sitting in a garbage can. And this Chinese fruit has a reputation for a horrible smell, which is so bad that the fruit's consumption is literally banned in hotels and public transportation across Asia. And now the University of Canberra Library posted the following day that they too would be the next organization to be banning the fruit. So could you imagine being that guy? Like, when I eat fish or eggs or something like that for lunch at work, I trip about the smell. That's all I'm ever thinking is like, oh fuck, like this food smells bad. I need to like eat it really quickly. Could you imagine having the confidence to eat something that smells so bad it literally clears a university library? Like, that person did not care. They were like, nope, I'm eating my Canberra fruit and it tastes good and I don't care. And apparently they do actually taste very good. Like, I searched the fruit. It seems like it's very hard to find here. I will not be trying it. I would have liked to, but apparently it's like very sweet and sugary almost. So that's cool, but it smells horrible. Like, clearly it smells horrible. But I mean, the ability to eat that in a university library, not even care, with all these people around, that's the sort of confidence that literally leads to porn. Like, that's how confident this person is. I'm just saying. You know, the parent of this son or daughter needs to keep a close eye on their child, because we all know that student debt is hard as hell to pay off. And if this person is seriously that confident, you never know what they're going to do to make a buck. Now, speaking of inappropriate content, this one, oh my god, I'm laughing. I haven't even finished reading it. Okay, so according to the Daily Star, based out of the UK, a famous exorcist was called to Vergato, Italy, after a famous painter and sculptor earlier this year revealed his new statue. And this is like a 70-year-old man. He's very famous. I don't know who he is, but whatever. Some famous dude, painter who lives in Italy like they all do. And this statue is supposed to be the epitome of his life's work. That's how he talks about it. Like, this is the big one. It's in the city center from the town he's from. It means the most to him. And the statue depicts an adult male faun with a young boy on his shoulders with butterfly wings. The butterfly wings kind of come off this boy's back. It's very fascinating and interesting, but the really interesting part of this fountain statue is that the adult faun has a rather impressive and very erect penis. Very erect penis. It is literally the funniest thing that I have seen while researching for this podcast. It is hilarious. Like, hilarious, this statue. If I was there when this was revealed, I would have burst out laughing. Like, it's so graphic. This faun has literally like a rock hard, like harder than you could imagine, erect penis with water shooting out of it as part of this fountain, with a boy sitting on his shoulders. It's the strangest thing. And it is so funny looking because it's like not a human, but like clearly some weird child rapey shit. Like, it's so funny looking and so weird that you actually need to Google the Vergato statue. Do it while you're at home. If you're at work listening, write down Vergato, Vergato. You have to look at this statue. It is hilarious. And the first photo of it that I saw was a small girl standing and like staring at the statue. It's like a shot from the side, so you can see like how far it sticks out. Like, it's like a side angle of it. And then like right behind the statue is this small girl staring at it, trying to sort out exactly what the hell she's looking at. Like, she has the funniest look on her face. And you can see her dad standing beside her, just like totally straight faced, like thinking, what the hell did I do to deserve to be put in this situation? Like, praying to the Lord above that his daughter does not ask what the hell she's looking at, you know? So, back to the story, though. The Exorcist was conducted, and I guess the statue is no longer possessed, but by what I can see online, the statue continues and will continue to have a good time in the indefinite future. Yeah, literally the funniest image I've come across while working on this podcast. So the city of Edmonton, coming back to my homeland, although rather far from where I live, the city of Edmonton in Alberta, in 2012, built a glass washroom building to try and stem the large increase they had seen in public urination charges. The police were saying that every day after the bars close, as everyone's leaving, they were handing out dozens of public urination fines every single day, which is a $500 ticket, and they wanted it to stop. So they put up, for safety reasons, a glass public washroom with essentially just urinals, and then there's a woman's side that has like 2 stalls in it. However, surprisingly, they found that people would rather pee behind a tree than pee inside a well-lit glass building on the side of the road. Like, this building, literally, it's a whole bunch of urinals with, like, absolutely no walls. So, like, you can be standing there taking a piss, and someone can be, like, outside literally standing beside you. Like, or, like, driving by, and, like, there's your dick right there while you're trying to piss. Like, no one is going in there to take a piss. It just doesn't, it's like, you know how drunk you would have to be like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm just going to whip my dick out in this glass building in front of everyone to take a leak. So, yeah, surprise, surprise. No one is using this building, and people would just, go behind a tree and risk the fine, which obviously the police are quite happy to give out whenever they can. Now, the police released, the reason this is a story, because it was built in 2012, seems to have worked initially, but the police recently released a statement saying that the building has been essentially taken over by homeless individuals. Because, of course, there's a building sitting there, it's heated, It doesn't get rained inside, and literally there is no one using it. So it's now become an individual for homeless to sleep overnight, and during the day it's actually a hotspot for drug use, and there have been several drug overdoses that have occurred in and around the building that police have been responding to, and they're saying that they're actually being called to the building multiple times a day. So initially they built this building hoping to free up police assets so that they wouldn't be, handing out these dumb tickets every time, but now instead of freeing up police assets, they've actually created more phone calls to the police to get these people out of there. I also read a thing that they're trying to clean the building, but the cleaning company that the city is paying, which again, they pay no matter what, whether they go in there or not, they have a contract stating that if there's anyone in there who appears dangerous, the cleaning staff won't go in. Well, the cleaning staff is not going to go in when there's like a bunch of homeless people sleeping there. So according to the staff, the police empty the washroom out in the morning during like rush hour or whatever. So during the day, the cleaning crew will go in once or twice, and the public apparently uses it a little bit during the day when it's probably a little bit harder to see yo dick hanging out, because when it's light outside, of course, we all know it's harder to see in glass. But when it's pitch black outside and well lit inside, it's like, hey, nice penis, man. It's just hanging out there by the glass window. So yeah, surprise, surprise. As I said, no one wants to use this. It's been taken over by homeless individuals and drug users, and maybe next time put up a real wall and people will actually use the facility. Now, my last story of this sort that I'm going to cover just briefly is a story out of Michigan that, surprisingly, I hadn't heard about this. This seems like the sort of thing that would pop up as I'm going through it. But today I was just taking another quick look through, and I totally missed this story. But it's a hilarious story. It's not really funny like the other stories are. It's just funny at how like dumb some people can be. So police in Grand Haven, Michigan, put out a plea to the public a few weeks ago after $30,000 in American cash literally fell off the back of a truck. Several drivers did the right thing. They pulled over, and they collected as much cash as they could before continuing on their way. The police have recovered, or had recovered, $2,500 from the road and returned it to the owners, who said to the media that they had simply forgotten that there was $30,000 on the bumper of their car. Come on! Anyone who forgets where they left their $30,000 does not need it that badly. They don't need it that badly. And so since the initial report, 2 teenagers have returned $630, and a woman returned nearly $3,900. So I just want all my listeners to know that if any of you picked up that cash, you had better not return it. If anything, send it to me or something. Only a real douchebag would stand in front of a camera and say to the media, yeah, we forgot we left that $30,000 there. We didn't even notice for a few days. And then we were like, I said to my wife, hey, sweetie, where's our box with $30,000 in it? Come on. Like, no one's giving you that money back. You don't deserve it. You're an asshole. That's not how you do it. Could you imagine, like Beyonce and Jay-Z going in front of the media and being like, ugh, I lost my $30,000. No, that's not what rich people do. Shut your damn mouth. You can't do that. You can't lose $30,000 and then realize it a few days later and then tell the public, oh, we just realized we lost our $30,000 while we were moving. Can you help us find it? That is not how it works. So ultimately, they've got back, like I said, a little bit, like close to like $6,000 of the 30. There's no way they're getting the rest of it back. And pro tip for the future, I would assume they don't have any sort of media training, or clearly they didn't make their money in marketing, because that is not what you do if you want your money back. You go like, oh, it's horrible. We can't find our $30,000. We were looking for it. We have a sick dog or a sick child. You have to come up with some sort of bullshit story like that. That way people are like, oh, okay, we'll give you your money back. But being like, oh, I don't know, we didn't realize for a few days. You asshole. What do you mean you didn't realize for a few days? Go to hell, man. Here's all these people pulling their car over on the side of the road and picking up like $5 and $10 bills. They're like, holy shit, money. And they're these rich people driving off with money just flying out of the back of their car like they're fucking Ellen DeGeneres giving cash away to all the people in their audience. Like, come on, man. It's so wrong. Yeah, and apparently the police have said that it caused a large traffic backup, no kidding, on the highway where it fell, and they are hoping that the family will get back more of the money. But as I already said, they are so not getting it. There really seems to never be a shortage of these strange and funny stories from around the world. So I like doing this every week. Usually I'll throw in like 3 or 4 of these. It's one of my favorite parts doing the podcast because the jokes just write themselves. These stories are hilarious. And at least I find them funny as hell. But yeah, I hope to do this every couple of months. Stories that I don't put into the main podcast, I'll put together an episode like this. And I, of course, have a main story for the day. It's probably going to be something in the title, so you probably already know what it is. But let's jump into what I also think is a hilarious story after I do my quick little fake ad read. And yeah, so the main story from today is going to be one from the American mainstream about abortion. How can that be funny? You're just going to have to listen to find out. As always, please don't forget to share the podcast with your friends and family. Tell them all about the might, the wonder, the glory that is the Laugh to Learn podcast. Mention it at work and flaunt the podcast like Pamela Anderson running down the beach to save someone drowning in the ocean. Yeah, that was a strange one. But anyways, don't forget to give me some 5 stars on iTunes. That would, of course, be an added bonus. And as always, thank you so much for the support, for tuning in every single week. And you can contact me once again at my social medias, which are in the description, or using the contact page on www.laughtolearnpodcast.com. Now it's time to get into that Melissa, or Alyssa. I'm going to say Melissa. I know I am. Her name is Alyssa Milano story. Her name's not Alyssa Milano story. It's Alyssa Milano, and this is her story. And I need to probably stop talking and just get into the main story. Okay, here we go. Now that I've done babbling like an idiot, I guess I'm going to do it some more. Actress Alyssa Milano has called for a female sex strike in response to a new anti-abortion bill in Georgia, where the practice has now been completely outlawed. Abortion in general has been made illegal. It is currently unclear if this is an actual thing, her whole sex strike, or if Alyssa and other female activists are just trying to get people talking. So both are possible. In an essay posted to CNN, the women said, there's a whole group of them, but she's, of course, the face of it. They said, quote, "It got the country talking about the GOP's undeniable war on women," end quote. And they followed with, quote, "So now we have your attention. Our reproductive rights are blatantly and systematically being stripped away before our very eyes," end quote. Now, to briefly explain the legislation and the situation we're in, of course, Roe v. Wade was the famous Supreme Court case many years ago in the U.S., which had the Supreme Court rule that the federal government does not recognize state-level anti-abortion laws, and it has been all of this is really interpretation, but it has been interpreted that states do not have the authority to ban the practice. It's actually deemed unconstitutional currently. However, this is where politics gets really complicated. So after Justice Kennedy's death, while Obama was still president, if you remember, they didn't let Obama appoint a new member to the Supreme Court. And the appointment of noted beer lover, Brett Kavanaugh, of course, he's the one that women came forward, one woman in particular, and said that he had done all sorts of things to her while she was in college, and as was he at the time. That is one more Republican justice on the court, taking the place of a Democratic justice. Now, that can explain the state's willingness, actually it does explain the state's willingness to challenge the Supreme Court on this legislation. So, essentially, there are 9 Supreme Court justices. Beforehand, they didn't have a majority who would vote against Roe v. Wade. Now, they're going to try, because if Brett Kavanaugh agrees with the Republican Party that abortion should be left to the states to decide. He doesn't have to believe that abortion should be illegal. He just has to believe that abortion is a state-level decision. Then Georgia and several other states, of course, would pass this legislation, and it'll say that they have the right to do so. Now, that would be insane if that were the case. It would literally change a major part of the interpretation of the Constitution. So there would be a lot of fallout, and that would be a big, big thing to happen. Now, the next step here, from a political perspective, is that the Supreme Court, when they return, because they're on their break right now for a few months, they will once again be tasked with determining if the states have the authority to ban abortion. They will be challenging, or Roe v. Wade, rather, I should say, will be challenged. So the Supreme Court will have to determine if they should overturn the previous interpretation. Now, that only takes 5 of the 9 judges to do, and in the past, most of the judges sitting right now actually haven't voted at the Supreme Court level on these sorts of cases. So 3 Republicans have voted for it in the past, and they only need 2 more, which I don't know. Like, this is one of those things that, as someone who really closely watches politics, I really have no idea. No one ever really knows with the Supreme Court which way they're going to vote. It's all legal interpretation. I really do believe that it doesn't come down to party lines. They aren't Republican justices and Democratic justices, although that's the way I said it earlier. That just means they were brought in by someone for that party. But, you know, if Brett Kavanaugh votes against this and says that Georgia doesn't have the right to do this, Trump can't fire him. He cannot do anything about it. So he has no reason to appease the party. And that's the whole idea of a lifetime appointment, right? Is it doesn't matter what you do, no one can fire you unless you get impeached, right? If they break the law or do something egregious, you can be impeached just like a president or a vice president or any politician could. But they cannot be fired by anyone in power. They can't be swayed to do anything is the idea, which is actually kind of cool. Now, I'll be closing today talking more about abortion, but for now, I want to get back to the actual story for the day, or the week rather. So Alyssa Milano apparently thinks that by her not putting out, pro-lifers will be convinced that abortion is a good thing. Now, the best response to this that I've seen is from a prominent Fox News host, and she tweeted back at Alyssa Milano that she is happy to see that she's finally agreeing with them, being the GOP, the Republicans, that abstinence is the best practice to avoid having the need for this discussion and having a child out of wedlock. Now, which I found that hilarious, because it's like, actually, yeah, you have to admit she's right. That's literally what that argument has been, is you shouldn't be having sex, and now she's saying we shouldn't have sex, and they're kind of like, yeah, that's what we've been saying. So Milano has been using the fact that by not having sex, she and other women don't need to worry about the abortion issue, which, as I just said, is, unfortunately for her, exactly the perspective that many on the Christian right have when it comes to abortion. That you should not be having sex out of wedlock, and then we wouldn't need to worry about the abortion issue because you would be married and at least open to the concept of having a child. Again, that is absolutely up for debate, and later on I'm going to get into my opinions on that. Ultimately, for Alyssa Milano, I think, who, by the way, is like an actress and some shit. A lot of people know her. I don't. Didn't even look her up. Don't care. I think that her attempt comes from a good place, but it's also sort of, and this is my opinion now, it's sort of objectifying in its own way, in a way that I don't like. And actually, if I knew someone who said something like this, I would have to say this to them, that to me, it's saying that men only listen to women because they put out, and that women should get what they want by not doing so, and ultimately that they should use their sexuality to get what they want. And it's actually a little fucked up if you look at it from that perspective, which is completely where I stand on this. I think that it's important to talk about and discuss issues like this, and I understand that if you aren't capable of doing so, that's okay. You don't there's other ways you can go about making your argument. This seems to be the way she chose to do. It's a little strange to me. I don't ever want anyone to feel like they have to be involved in political discourse directly in the way that maybe I am, or someone listening to this right now might be, where they talk about it with people, whether it's on a podcast, television, online, in person. Some people just can't do that, which is totally cool, but they still want to be involved. So maybe she doesn't feel confident enough or knowledgeable enough to debate or discuss with someone who is pro-life, which I would totally respect that perspective if she came out and said that, because I would need to do a whole lot of research before sitting down with someone and having that discussion or debate in a public forum. In private, I would just talk about it, but to actually go back and forth on it, you need a lot of information. But nonetheless, I can generally find a way to explain my perspectives and have meaningful discussion with people without the need for my audience to want what's in my pants. Although, of course, I wouldn't blame you. But her approach is, in my opinion, again, not the way to have a discussion in and about political policy in 2019, or really ever for that matter. I just really think it's going against her goal, and it's objectifying herself and other women. Just the way that I'm looking at it is she's basically saying to everyone, we need to not put out, that way they listen to us, which is saying that they don't listen to us as long as we're fucking them. That's what that's saying. Which is like, wow, that's actually how you, first of all, that's how you look at men, and second of all, that's how you look at yourself? She has, to me, that looks like you have very little respect for yourself intellectually. Like, to say that, as a woman, the only way that I can be listened to is to keep my legs closed. Like, I don't know. I don't like it. I really don't like it. Like, I get the point. I get the point. Trust me, I would be pissed if my girl was like, I'm not having sex until you agree with me. I'd be like, okay, I get your point. I hear what you're saying. A few days would go by, and I'd be like, okay, it's time to fucking put these feelings aside. But I don't think that, like, in a relationship, when you're talking about, like, whatever, you have an issue over one thing, and that's what she says, okay, got it. But in public, you don't go like, hey, ladies, this is what we're going to do to make men listen to us. Because you're not even talking to all men. You're talking to pro-life men and pro-life women and trying to get them on your side, right? Because someone who's pro-choice is already on your side. You don't need to hold sex away from your man who's pro-choice. Like, that to me is like you're kind of now shooting at your own people. You're like Donald Trump shooting his own fucking fans on Fifth Avenue, and no one's calling the cops, and you're getting away with it. It's a little strange. If she was like a hooker and she's like, I'm not going to sleep with you, and every Republican pro-life person in the world wants to sleep with her, okay, then that would make sense. But you're withholding a product that they don't have access to. And you're telling women to withhold a product that, again, your audience does not have access to. It's a little strange. It's like saying, you know what we're going to do to make North Korea not shoot missiles at us? We're going to stop selling bottled water. Like, everyone over here in Canada and in the US will be pissed that they can't buy bottled water. How does that affect Korea? You know what I mean? How does this affect the Republican Party in any way, shape, or form? Because all of their people still getting laid. Now your people aren't getting laid, and they're just more pissed about the fact that abortions are illegal because they're not getting laid. It's a little strange. So After I just said that I would need to do a ton of research on abortion for my rant today, I'm going to use no factual information and still explain to you why I am pro-life, just briefly in my rant today. So at this point, I would expect to infuriate roughly half the audience, and the other half probably don't care, and I will not move any sort of needle with them at all. So here goes a little bit of career suicide. For those of you who don't stick around, that's cool too. Thanks for listening. Come back next week. But for those of you who are interested, here's my brief explanation on my pro-life stance. I'll probably at some point in the future do a full episode on this, but for now it's just going to be a short little rant because it's just about the end of the episode. So, as I alluded to before the guitar went wow, I am adamantly actually pro-life. And I'll start by saying that I don't like abortion. I'm not adamantly yelling at people to have abortions, but I think they are a very necessary part of society. I used to tell people that I'm actually not pro-life, I'm pro-abortion, because I think there are several circumstances where, like, absolutely you need to have an abortion. Like, there are people who have nothing, no money, not a house, they're living on the street. That person needs to have an abortion. There are people who are drug addicts. They need to have an abortion. There are who get pregnant, they need to have an abortion. There are 12 and 13-year-olds who get pregnant, and they're like, what the fuck? They did, you know what I mean? First time, second time you ever had sex, and you got pregnant. You need to have an abortion. I absolutely believe that. And a lot of people use it, they say, well, I think it's murder. To which I say, fine, I will agree with you. I will grant you that. I will grant you that it's murder. Because there's no question that that thing, that fetus growing inside of a woman, is going to be a baby. So if you want to define that as murder, I'm not going to die on that hill. I'll say, sure it's murder. No problem. But this is one murder that I think as a society we have to realize is sort of acceptable. And maybe I am very cynical in doing that, because a lot of pro-life people say it's not murder, it's not a human yet, blah, blah. No, you're just fucking lying to yourself. That's my opinion. All these pro-life pro-choice individuals who say that, like, oh, it's not murder, it's not a baby. No, it's a fucking baby. There's no question about that. Is there 100% chance that it's going to be born a baby? No, there are tons of miscarriages, and for whatever reason, the birth doesn't go the whole distance, the baby has some sort of illness and miscarries, blah, blah, blah. Sure, it's possible. However, statistically in 2019, when you find out you're pregnant, you're going to give birth to that baby. So I am of the mind that, sure, let's call it murder. I don't care what you want to call it. It should be legal murder. Fine, no problem. I'm just being completely honest about it, because I have been in and around several situations where if that person had the baby, would they make it? Would that baby survive? Sure they would. But would they be a drain on the system, on the government system? Hell yeah. Would they ruin the parents' lives? Hell yeah. Yeah, they would. Would they ruin other people's lives? Yes, they would. They absolutely would. And from my perspective, you're under no obligation to birth that child into a world where they're going to be at a disadvantage. Under no obligation. And this is actually one place where I agree with AOC, Alexia Ocasio-Cortez. There's not many places, actually, believe it or not, as lefty as I may be, there's many places I disagree with her. But this one I agree, where she said that people our age are very hesitant to have their own children, and she talks about the environment specifically and overpopulation. I completely agree. I have said to lots of people that I know, I never plan on having my own biological kids. I want to adopt kids. I don't want to bring my own kids into this world. There's enough that need a home. And I understand why most people are not comfortable with adoption. They want their own kids. I get that. But for me, I'm like, no. Like, there's no need to be having more kids. There's none. There are literally hundreds of thousands of children dying every year because they can't eat. There are kids right here where we live, there are kids who are born as drug addicts because their parents did not have abortions, because they went into their churches for help, And the church was like, yeah, you can do this. That, to me, is wrong. That's wrong. You're bringing a child into this world who has no chance. Now, there are situations of like rape. Like a 12-year-old girl is raped, and you think that she should birth that child as long as the doctor says she's not going to die while she's doing it? That's fucking crazy. Are you kidding me? Literally, I saw this argument on Fox News as I was just watching a few videos for this, where there's a 12-year-old girl in Louisiana or Mississippi. There was a few cases I was looking at. So it was one of those two states. And a Fox News correspondent said that it is this girl's responsibility to birth that child because a doctor said she's like large enough, her frame is big enough that she can support the child, support carrying the child and birth it naturally, and it will not do severe damage to her body. I'm sorry, that is wrong. A 12-year-old who was raped should be forced to have this child? No. No. I think that you need to draw a firm line here where there are two individuals. There's the unborn baby and the living baby. That's a 12-year-old. That's a child, still a baby. And both of those individuals, the unborn and the born, have rights. But those rights are not equal. They cannot be equal. You have to value the life that already exists in a sustained manner. You cannot give equal rights to an unborn child. To me, that is like black and white. And do you want to murder that unborn child? No, you don't want to. But are you going to? Yeah, you probably should. You probably should. And I've never had a pro-life person tell me an argument that has swayed me. And I know that I'm not going to sway anyone else on that. I know that I'm not. I'm just being real about it, where I'm looking at the situation and I'm saying we do not need... I've worked with children who come from this. My a close family member has worked a lot with children who come from these situations. I know people who come from these situations where you are born into a horrible situation and it ruins you for the rest of your life. I've seen people who have committed suicide very young because of the childhood that they were born into. Now, that is a really interesting argument, is the individuals who I know who died very young because of those situations that they were in, should they have been born at all? It's a fascinating topic. My position is that hindsight is 20/20. And in hindsight, yes, that person lived a life and I benefited from their existence as well as several others, but you can't look backwards. You have to look forwards. And when I'm looking at a young teenager, or even someone in their 20s or 30s or 40s who's in a position where they cannot support a child, and literally, like, this kid's going to have to be taken from them and put into foster care, and they're never going to live with their parents, or they're going to live with their parents, and their parents are going to be demanding money from the government every month indefinitely until the child is 18 because there's no one to pay for them. The kid's not going to be going to college or university unless they are straight A students and get a massive scholarship, which is very unlikely from those situations. Like, it's just, you just have to look at it statistically and say that, yes, what you're looking at is life. Yes, I agree with you that it's murder. However, no, I don't believe that that fetus has rights, or at least has equal rights to the living person that they are existing upon. They need the human to support them, and if that human doesn't want to support them, they shouldn't need to. Unfortunately, there is no foster womb that they can go to, so I'm pro-life. Fuck. I'm pro-choice. I was just reading pro-life. Now I screwed the whole thing up. Whatever, thank you for sticking it out to the end. And yeah, thank you all for listening. As always, this podcast is ad-free, and all I ask is that you share it with your friends and family. You can get it on all major podcasting platforms, but of course, Podbean is my home. Subscribe on any podcasting app or on YouTube. Tell your friends about me each and every week. Take what I talk about, have these discussions at home, tell your friends about it, and then tell your friends where you heard those hilarious stories from. Remember the naked basketball man in Florida? That's a story you should tell at work tomorrow because it's hilarious. Thank you all, and as always, we are now only a week away from our next episode.